Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the next forum session on supporting today's generation and inspiring the next, kindly supported by the NFU and ABN. Before we start, with regards to questions, if you do have any questions, we are slightly tight on time, so if you head over to either the NFU or ABN stands after the session. My name's Henry Gibbs, and I'm a free-range egg producer from Shropshire, and also a past poultry industry programme participant, which I will go into more detail with shortly. It all started for me in 2016, after I finished agricultural college and working on a farm in Western Australia. I wanted to fulfil my lifelong dream of returning to the family farm. However, with only being a small farm, a diversification was needed in order to make it possible. I looked at a number of different diversification opportunities and decided that free-range layers was the industry for me, with always being interested since a young age. However, so from here, I started the process with business plans designed, submitting planning applications and securing investment. This led to me gaining planning approval in January 2019, where we began construction in the summer of that year, with my first flock of 32,000 arriving in January 2020. Alongside this, I have a keen interest in becoming net zero, with now having 80 kilowatt of roof-mounted solar, bees and a wildflower lay and tree planting programme, as well as currently carbon calculating. For me, investing in battery storage when the technology comes available, in order for us to become self-sufficient in electrical imports and avoid the turbulent market, will be a priority. Summer 2021, I installed a farm gate egg vending machine, followed by marketing some of our own eggs direct into retail across Shropshire and neighbouring counties. Recently, I've installed an additional vending machine and have taken on another farm, bringing us to a total of just under 47,500 free-range laying hens. During this time, I was fortunate enough to gain a place on the NFU Poultry Industry Programme's 5th cohort, and what a fantastic opportunity this was. The Poultry Industry Programme is run by the NFU and ABN, which was initially started to help develop young people already working within the poultry industry, building on the existing skills and knowledge to help them develop their careers as future industry leaders. As you can see from the pictures, we travelled the length and the width of the country, and even went over to Brussels, visiting the British Agricultural Bureau, which represents all the national farmers' unions across the UK, promoting our views to European institutions and stakeholders. We also visited places such as Kelly Bron's free-range turkeys in Essex, where we got an insight into seasonal turkey production from hatching right through to the processing plant. One of my personal highlights was our London trip. Having the chance to visit the Houses of Parliament and engage with MPs was brilliant, as well as visiting DEFRA headquarters and hearing from Lord Benyon, the Minister of State at DEFRA, and Gordon Hickman, the Head of Exotic Disease Control at DEFRA. This programme was fantastic and really opens up many opportunities, from meeting like-minded people through to industry leaders, as well as gaining friends and contacts for life. Additionally, we had the opportunity to undergo personal training and development, from media training right through to negotiations. One of the key highlights for me was Farmers for Schools training, a programme run by NFU Education, educating the next generation with presentations in schools across the country. For me, this is an excellent opportunity, and I would strongly recommend everyone to get involved. The food we eat has a story, and we are the people behind that story, so there is no one better to tell it. to be able to share what we do as British farmers to produce high quality food whilst looking after the environment. The next generation is our future. That's all from me. Thank you very much for listening. Now I will pass you over to Matt Donald. So Matt is a broiler breeder and pig producer from the north of England, who is also a past poultry industry programme participant and currently stands on the NFU National Poultry Board. So without further ado, Matthew.
Afternoon, everyone. I'm Matt Donald. I farm up in North Yorkshire alongside my brother and father. I returned to the farm in 2010 following a short stint at university. A year of being in Newcastle was enough for me, and a position became available at home on the pig unit, and I decided then that it was probably time to move home. Once I found my feet, I sort of focused on the pig farm for the first part of my career, and then I joined the poultry industry programme, the 17-18 cohort, for reasons I will come on to later on. We rebuilt the pig farm in 15-16, modernising the unit and improving performance, and that resulted in becoming Young Pig Farmer of the Year in 2017. At this point, my brother came home and he had more of a focus on the pigs, and I started to focus towards the poultry a bit more. I became an NFU poultry board member following doing the PIP. I learnt a lot about the NFU and I wanted to get more involved. And being a board member, I wanted to help steer the industry. I think we've got a fantastic poultry industry, and doing my bit to help sort of coordinate with government and with allied industry in making the poultry sector a fantastic sector to work in. I was then fortunate enough to get Young Poultry Farmer of the Year in 2022. The business itself, we've got 2 modern broiler breed units producing fertile hatching eggs for PD hook, 300 sows far to finish, all in-house, our own herd, producing 7,500 to 8,000 bacon pigs a year for Morrison's and a local farm shop. We've got a small amount of arable. We do it all ourselves, kept in-house, and it's fairly efficient due to the use of manures that we've got. We have some industrial lets for diversification, small fabrication firms that generate a higher business. Our diversification is mixed pigs and poultry, but we do have other aspects. Also renewable-wise, solar, ground source heat pumps and a biomass. And we've just started, or we're on building a 3rd broiler breed unit which will come online in August. The poultry side of it, there's an overview on the slide there of what we do. Our business income runs on chicks and chick numbers. So we don't only want eggs, we want them to hatch and be fertile. But we also want quality. As an independent breeder farmer, I want people to want our chicks. So we supply the Dalton hatchery, and once our new site is running, we'll be about 25% of the chicks out of that hatchery. And we sort of want broiler growers in the north to want our chicks, and that means that our business going forwards will be demanded by PD hook. I love the poultry sector, and I certainly love doing broiler breeders. It's very niche. There's no other independents that I know of doing breeders in North Yorkshire, and maybe not even Yorkshire. And that's why I've sort of had the focus as a business going forwards of pushing our poultry side. The pig industry is very boom and bust. You never quite know where you stand. The breeder side of it is a bit more constant. The poultry industry programme, they're the reasons that I joined, and funnily enough what I gained out of the programme is exactly that. Knowledge about the wider industry, not just broiler breeders. I learnt a lot more about the broiler sector, which is very important to us as well, but also free range, ducks, turkeys, and the allied industry and the wider industry. We've got friends from our group that we still keep in touch with today, with a WhatsApp to help you when you need it. There's always a question fired in about different things to do with the poultry sector, and I still frequently talk to the people that was on my cohort today. Learnt new skills, and the one I'm going to single out, and I know Henry touched on it, is media training. It puts you out your comfort zone. It's actually, when you looked at the programme, it was the one thing that I thought, well, you know what, that might not be the funnest afternoon, but actually I got more from that than many of the other trips. It really pushed you beyond your comfort zone. Seeing other larger businesses drives your own growth aspirations. You go away, you look at how other people do it, and you come back to your farm and you sort of think, well, can we do this, can we do that, or how can we do things differently? Brussels, Houses of Parliament, Aldi, Oakland's Farm and Uphouse Farm were some of the places we went to name a few. But we also learned so much more about the NFU, or I did. And that's the reason I'm on the board now, is because I was a bit green to the NFU before the PIP. I just thought it was an insurance company that had someone to help farmers, but actually there is so much more going on. And a day with people coming from the NFU to talk to you, it was really inspiring. The next generation are crucial, both on farm and allied industry. And what can we do to support that? Well, firstly, encourage them. Half of our workforce at the farm are now under 24. And we believe in taking young people on that are not only poultry or farming background, that have even been, not from a farming background basically, so, let them learn more about our sector. I do think that training can be improved, and being on the poultry board, I'd like to try and steer this better. I think what we've got is great through samples such as Poltech, but in my opinion, I feel that the Enroso side of training on the arable business, so you gain points in a year for attending events such as the Pig and Poultry Fair, spending time with your agronomist, or it could be a poultry advisor, going to certain meetings or like an NFU poultry meeting, and have a point style business. I've sat a manual handling course 3 times now, and I do sometimes feel that maybe deters young people that having to sit and do the same things. Make it an attractive lifestyle. COVID, on the back of COVID, young people were wanting more time, or everybody wanted more time on their hands, and farming's had a bit of a reputation for long hours, long weekends, but most of our guys now, they'll finish at about 3 o'clock, and on a poultry farm it's doable. You get on in the morning, you get done. I'm well aware that clean out times and turnaround times, there's night shifts to do, but spread it around the team. And pay fairly. We've got an 18-year-old at the moment. After 3 months, he'll be on a full adult salary. If he's doing the work that an adult can do, or an old adult can do, then pay them fairly. I don't believe in exploiting anyone for minimum wage if they're doing a full job. And that way, I think we can inspire the next generation to join on farm, and that may lead into allied industry, and so on. So what's next for me and the business? Firstly, the most important part of the future is you. Look after yourself, your mental health, and ask yourself where you want to be and what you want to do in the next 5 years. AI's been quieter, touch wood, recently, but for us, biosecurity is key. We run a pig and poultry farm together, and some people say, how on earth do you do that? But we've proven for years we can do that through stringent biosecurity measures. But ultimately, the health and performance of your birds, which will be your sustainability, is vital. And anything to improve biosecurity is never questioned. Growth. In the last 8 years, we've trebled our poultry numbers, increased the pig herd by 50%, trebled the acreage, and gained all our renewables. So we've had some rapid growth. We want to keep growing, but equally, I think a couple of years of just paying off the bills and starting the new site and getting it up and running and getting the core team to help us is probably the sort of 2-year view. Succession is key for me, but also for the sector. We need young people coming through that are going to take on these roles. I'm fortunate that I farm alongside my brother and my father, and we all get along very well. We have 3 sites, or once the site on the board there is built this summer, there'll be 3 sites across 3 farms. And for the meanwhile, we all get on and it works really well. You never know what the future holds with potential future generations or where the business might go. But the ability to split the business is vital if it ever came to that. And this is allowed by having individual sites. You see too often one main farm built up, and then when it needs dividing, it's about impossible. But also, mine and my brothers parents they've been very fortunate. We've been very fortunate in that as soon as we sort of come back to the business, we've all got equal shares, and the company structure allows that. And I think a lot of people struggle with succession, and it should be talked about in every farming business. But if I'm talking to a young person, know where you're going. You don't work for nothing in the promise that you'll get something in 10 or 20 years' time, because it doesn't always happen, unfortunately. Farm life balance, a work hard, play hard ethos, and success should be measured more in time off rather than how many hours you have to work in a week. Agriculture, again, has been slandered with long hours. Well, that should not be the case. If we're trying to attract young people, it's no good saying you're going to have to do a 50, 60, 70-hour week every week. In order to be sustainable, you have to be profitable. And we want to move towards net zero. We're a long way off, I will admit, but cutting carbon out of the business is cutting cost. And a focus on reducing costs to increase our margins is something that we'll be working on over the next 5 years. And it is vital as a business going forward that we're profitable. Otherwise, there's no succession. And finally, poultry is a great industry to work in. And through the Poultry Industry Programme and leading on to being a board member and get myself out there, I've met some fantastic people. And chickens are fantastic animals to work with, but also the meat that we produce at the end of it, there is great opportunities out there. It's versatile, sustainable and affordable. So we're all in the right sector to start with, but let's work together to get the next generation to keep that sector going forwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Matt. It's great to see how your business has evolved since coming home and how you've progressed with the NFU and everything. So, lastly, we have Tom Glenn. Tom is the NFU Poultry Advisor and also the past poultry industry participant. So without further ado, Tom Glenn.
Thanks very much, Henry. Thanks everyone for coming this afternoon. My name's Tom Glenn, I'm the Poultry Advisor at the NFU, and I'm just going to talk to you for a few minutes about my career so far, how I got into poultry, some reflections on what I think are good things to do at the early starts of your career, and how we can support the next generation of people coming through the poultry sector. So my background, I'm not actually from an agricultural background or a poultry background. I grew up in the countryside. That's probably the closest claim I can have. I saw farms growing up, but that was about as close as I got. I went to Leeds University. I had a plan that I was going to graduate and go to London and earn loads of money. I didn't really have an idea of how I was going to do that, but I thought that was how progression worked. When I got to my last year, it got to choosing a project to do, and I hated the laboratory, so I was looking at what can I do to not do that, and on the list of options was a farm trial. Never even been on a farm before at this point, but I thought that's got to be better than a laboratory, and it was. It ended up being a piglet nutrition trial. I looked after 400 weaner piglets for 8 weeks, looking at different commercial feed rations. It was brilliant. I loved every minute of it. There's a much younger me with some of my colleagues at the farm in our very sexy looking overalls back in 2012, that was. So that trial was sponsored by AB Agri. They said, if you're interested, we've actually got a graduate scheme in commercial nutrition. Why don't you have a look, and if you're interested, apply. So that's what I did. I was successful, and in 2014 I started off as a commercial nutrition graduate at AB Agri. At that point in time, and I'll say this quietly because I'm in the poultry theatre, I actually wanted to be a pig nutritionist. That didn't actually last very long when I joined the graduate scheme. And this is why I think graduate schemes and placement schemes and internships are a really important part of bringing the generation through, because you don't know what you want to do at that stage in your life. And by doing a scheme like that, you can experience different things without making up your mind. And so for me, it showed me that my skills and my interest didn't align that well with being a nutritionist. But what it did show me was that I wanted to be customer facing, I wanted to be out on farm, and I also wanted to be doing something with data and science. So when a job came up on the ABN's poultry team to work on farm with producers, looking at data, I thought, well, that's perfect. And that was my start of my journey into poultry. One of the benefits of working for a large organisation is that you sometimes get the opportunity to change roles. You can move sideways, might get promoted, you can do different things without changing the organisation you work for, which which I did whilst I was at ABN. I worked in the technical team. I also had an opportunity to be a lead account manager on a commercial team, so I was introduced to the world of business-to-business interactions, building a sort of broader foundation for the rest of my career. In 2017, I joined the NFU's Poultry Industry Programme. I'll come on to that again in a minute, but that actually exposed me to the world of food policy and got me interested in how interactions with other stakeholders have an influence on what we do as farmers and farming businesses and allied industries and the impact that can have. And I wanted to start to think about how could I influence that for the better. And then a couple of years later, a job came up at the NFU as poultry advisor in the policy team. And I thought, well, that's a perfect opportunity for me to explore that in a bit more detail. And I've been there ever since. I did mention the Poultry Industry Programme. I think programmes and initiatives like this are so important for bringing people through the sector. It gets you out of your niche, if you like. So at that time, I'd only ever worked in feed. I was in that kind of bubble of my part of the supply chain. By joining a program like the NFU's Poultry Industry Program, you get experience outside of your own little bubble. We visited retailer, processors, packers. We went to Westminster, went to Europe. We explored all different parts and spoke to different stakeholders. I made a new network and new friends, some of which I've seen today. It was 7 years ago I was on the programme and we're still in touch. It's a network that I can ask questions of, I can tap up for advice that will probably follow me through the rest of my career. And I wouldn't have that if I hadn't done a programme like this. And I think the biggest thing for me is it exposed me to the bigger picture, taking a step back out of what your role is day to day and seeing how the wider supply chain operates. So I'll finish off by just touching on what I think the opportunities are for the future. I thought about what things I wish I'd known when I started in the sector, and I think as employers, managers and businesses, we can also use this to bring in new talent and develop it through the sector. My first one is follow your interests. It might sound quite obvious, but you're going to spend a lot of time at work, so you might as well do something that you find interesting. And I think for employers, this means that where you've got those schemes like graduate schemes, placements, internships, you give people the space to explore a little bit and find what that interest is going to be. If you're further on in your career, look for those opportunities to develop those interests and then use that to determine your next career moves. Ask questions, be curious. I once had the most backhanded compliment I've ever had from a previous colleague who said, "Tom, I always admire the fact that you're never afraid to ask the stupid questions." Which I took with the way I hope it was intended, but I think it's a serious point around don't be afraid to ask those questions. And for those of us that are being asked the questions, make sure you're making people comfortable enough to ask those questions and develop their knowledge. By asking questions of people that know more than you, you will learn and develop your skills and experiences. Taking a targeted approach. I think when you spot that you've got a gap in your knowledge or skills, the immediate instinct can be to, I need a training course, I need to go here and do this. I think it's useful to take a step back and is this skills gap going to impact the ability to do my job or to move my career forward? And if it's not, maybe actually you want to focus that time and energy in developing one of the skills you already have and turning it into a real strength. You don't have to be brilliant at everything. And I think managers and business owners have a part to play in this, in helping staff identify what their strengths and weaknesses are and helping them navigate which areas they want to focus on. Shared values. Again, it should sound obvious. You're going to spend a lot of time at work. You might as well work for somebody that you like. And I think that's really important. I think for me, in the choices I've made with my employers, I think if you can find a business that shares your values, you like the way they communicate, the way they operate, perhaps you like their culture, I think that can be more important in some ways than the actual technical job title. The flip side of that is you could have the perfect job on paper, but if you work for a rubbish employer, you're going to have a terrible time. And I think this also works the other way as well. When we're recruiting people, is look for the people that clearly share the values of your business and you can pull them in and you can let them thrive. And finally, flexibility. Matt's already touched on it in his presentation as well. We're struggling for good people at every level in the poultry sector. And we're going to have to go outside of the sector, outside of agriculture, outside of rural communities to bring new talent into the sector. And that means we're competing with other sectors. And I think on paper, we're not doing the best job of promoting the wide variety of jobs and experiences that we have to offer. I think also we've got a younger generation coming through into work who now want a job that offers them work-life balance. They want a better work-life balance than they saw their parents have when they were growing up. What this means in practice is they want a job that fits around their life, not the other way around. That might sound like having your cake and eating it, but fundamentally we need staff and we need these people to come in. So I think we're going to have to take a step back as a sector and look at the roles we've got and be creative about how we offer them. Are we offering the right pay? Are the hours flexible enough? What can we do to make those jobs more attractive? Clearly, it cuts both ways. Farming is not a 9-to-5 career, so there will need to be flexibility both ways. But I do think we've got a real challenge on our hands to make the roles we've got more attractive to people like myself who come into this having never stepped foot on a farm before. So that's everything from me, but I will finish with a quick plug for the poultry industry programme. Part of my job at the moment is coordinating the programme, so applications are open for the next group, which start in September. They're open to the 29th of May. If you scan the QR code, it'll take you to a bit more information on how to apply. If you want to speak to me or previous participants about it, drop by the NFU stand or the ABN stand just after this presentation. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and thank you to our speakers, Tom, Glenn, and Matt Donald. I hope everyone found it as informative and interesting as I did. So as Tom said, there will be members and past pit participants at the NFU stand just behind that wall there, and also straight back, almost by where you came in on the entrance. So thank you very much, everyone.